do have a quorum. Let's go ahead and have the pledge, guys, and then, wait, when he gets here, we'll be ready to go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you all very much. Let the record show that we today are in a workshop on the budget. We are meeting in the Commissioner's Court room in the Nueces County Commissioner's Courthouse. I'd like to certify that 4 members of the court are present and that we do have a quorum. And today, we'll just open it up, and whatever you all would like to talk about the proposal that was made, let's do that and see where we go. And Steve, do you have anything to start off with?
No, I think with Commissioners over, we ended last time, but we're primarily concentrating on tab 7 and 8. But I know that we went through that, but it's an opportunity for you to
please
ask you questions.
Think about it.
After at the end, I'll go through the schedule.
Okay.
Of the coming weeks.
Okay. All right. So here we are. Who would like to be first?
Well, I've got a couple of things.
Sure. What page?
Well, I don't know what page they are. But,
Oh, okay. All right.
but I know on some items that were given to us during the budget for $350,000. I think I shared it with Steve. It was $350,000 for the sheriff overtime.
Yes.
Is that what it was? 350?
350.
What page are you on?
I don't know. I just wrote it down.
It must be on page
Tab 7,
tab 7, page
page
2.
Item 14.
Yeah, item 14. 352.
Right,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and also on the coastal parks, the 300,000. I think, to me, and I share this with Steve, I guess, and Dale. If we, I know we have quite a few vacancies in the sheriff department, and probably we need to fill those up. If we have 350,000 overtime, I mean, just going to probably, and I think we talked about, something. Yeah, my deal was, well, you got 150,000 to work with. You got to fill up those vacancies, and if not, we're going to. Those vacancies aren't going to be important. They're going to keep on using it overtime until they wipe it out. So I think that we need to maybe put a cap there in case maybe they need to come back and ask for it.
Let me clarify a little bit. Go to tab 15.
15.
Right, page
3.
83. Tab 15.
Okay, sure.
This is the jail's budget. That's what I want to clarify is that the $350,000 that we're adding in there is not the only overtime he has. Last year he spent $1.4 million in overtime. If you see there in the actual 15-16 column, okay, we have budgeted $460,000 over the years, and knowing that wasn't going to be enough, and we transferred money from salaries down to cover that. And the issue is he has to have the staffing in place for jail standards. So over the time, this year is getting to a point, again, that it affects his overall bottom line budget, and he's going to fill the need that we need to get a little closer, but the extra 350, it will put him at basically $1 million in overtime.
Well, I think we keep doing that because of the vacancies are not filled, and if they use that money to pay overtime, but they're not going to fill them because they're going to use the money for overtime, and then of course the other 350 or whatever it was last year, I mean it's there, so they're going to use it.
But this, yeah, yeah, they've been using it anyway. It's just a matter of taking the transfer from salary account. The only component in here that, in this overtime component is also all the holiday pay, et cetera. And of course, it deals staff fully every holiday we have. So some of this overtime is going to be there regardless of whether it's 100%
Well,
staff
yeah.
or not. But it's not, the big part is just the staffing issue.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Somebody's gonna be there, I know, understand that, because it's the holidays, the differential, the difference, whatever. But I'm just saying, instead of the 350, I mean, somewhere we got to say, you got this much to work with, you gotta really, I don't know. I mean, I just think that the more money we put in there, it's gonna be spent, and we don't fill those vacancies, that's gonna be spent in overtime, so. 11 vacancies, it's a lot, to somebody to work overtime to fill up those vacancies, so that's my, my question on that as far as, I mean, I don't know what we can do with it, but I don't know, this is my thought, and,
That's fine. That's
You know.
a good thought.
and the other one, Stephen, let me just jump into the one in the coastal parks, the 300,000 for operations, and, I've always asked what operations were, and we talked about operations, and,
Well, the operations, maybe people are clear or not, operations is just like the inland parks. It's the inland parks, everything that Edward has over is operations. That's the same, what we're talking about here is Island Park. Now, the thing that Island Parks has that inland doesn't have is they do have the special fund that they have for, that they collect some of their pier fees go into it. Is that right, Dale?
Yes.
Or the RV stops, but they have the fund at 181, which is, they get some of the revenue that goes into there that's used for capital expenditures, but the day-to-day operations, when I say operations, it's just like my budget or Dale's budget or Inland Parks budget, it's what they need to take care of the function for the city.
well, I mean, again, I'm going to go back to something I've asked several times on this. I know, and I know you mentioned about the revenues of bringing in monies, but yet the money is being spent. And my thing here is, if we having a hard time, we keep saying next year will be better, next year will be better, next year will be better. Why are we expanding? We need to stop expanding at one point and just do what we have to do and bring that up to par before we expand anymore. I just feel that we all want to. It's good to expand, but I mean, if you don't have the money to expand, why are we expanding?
But that's the same for all our departments, including in the parks. We had in parks over there.
Yeah, but we're not giving nobody else that much money either to expand. So.
So this isn't additional staff or anything. It's really just the function of the carrying forward.
So the revenues that are coming in are not really covering net expenses.
No. And as I said, their revenues that they take in is around $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million. That is contributing towards their operation.
So they're spending more than $1 million, I guess, if they're bringing $1 million.
Their total budget is $2.3 million.
I know, but I'm saying, but they're bringing in revenues of $1 million. They're spending over $1 million, I guess, on operations. I mean, we give them their budget, I guess. Their budget is their budget. But aside their budget, they're bringing in some revenues, right? That's right. That's what I mean. That's.
If you go to tab 21 on page. You can look at actual last year or estimated actual this year. Let's look at the actual last year. I do need to clarify, they're actually bringing in that $1,055,000 plus the $228,000 under transfers in. That's coming from the pier fund. Those two, so they're making close to $1.3 million is what they're contributing to revenue. And last year, the Commissioners Court contributed $882,000 to transfers. The current year's transfers that we have is $917,000 what we're transferring in for this year. And that increase from the previous years is the same thing we do with the other part. The salary increases from last year, we increased the transfer to cover the salaries both for the inland parks and island park people. Now the difference is this coming year, rather than $917,000, if you go to page 3, and the column which is outlined with lines down the middle of the proposed budget, if you look all the way down the bottom, that red $249,000 is where I would project they're going to be with basically a similar program they had from last year. Had they increased their budget by $145,000 due to water charges that they hadn't had before. But anyway, if we don't transfer money over there, we have to go through here and try to get. And again, a lot of salaries and benefits is a big part of it. Utilities, which we have to pay the utilities, so it's digs into operating out there, I guess what I'm saying.
I don't know, so we got into something we can't handle, we're not above water, but, I don't know, Judge, we keep, my deal is we keep expanding and,
No, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner. I cannot explain the salary difference other than, I guess, the people got the same rates everybody else.
Oh, yes. When the salary money, when we give a 2% increase last year.
Right, everybody got it.
yeah, I understand that. But it seems like it's costing us a lot more for maintaining, and keeping up with bills and keeping up with utilities and keeping up with, and I don't think we have the same problem most of the other areas that we have, that other than the gas, I guess, or whatever, but.
I guess if you go back one tab, the tab 20, and the first page. In our inland parks, the projection, what we're proposing this year is transferring $1.6 million from the general fund to inland parks. So in comparison, the inland parks total budget is less than the island parks, but the amount of transfer that we make is substantially more.
Yeah, but
Because they don't have the revenue come in.
Sure.
The legitimate reason they don't have the.
You can talk about 2 million something more, but difference. And a lot of this, that, 1.6 million is not really all salaries, it's really construction and, and infrastructure.
Well, he doesn't have much construction money in here for the Commissioner.
Infrastructure, I'm talking about the parks and all this other
I
stuff.
mean, that's coming from separate funding. So on page 2, you see that basically what's in this budget is there's $155,000 there for building and ground maintenance and $160,000 for capital outlays, and that's for those are the two things that are maintaining your parks and equipment, etc. But it's not any major projects, as you know.
No.
Okay.
And the 300,000 is going to be can we do that in contingency as far as the 300,000 where they actually cannot touch it unless you need it?
They'll not talk about it. That's a consideration for us to do is put that $300,000 as a contingency. If they bring on the new RV park and they get the projected revenue to increase next year, that's a possibility for us. This is when we're talking about for the island park.
So where would, you gotta balance this, so how would you balance it
We
with
would have to,
contingency
I
fund?
mean, if it's the contingency, I would recommend that, well, it would be included in the transfers out. But Dorothy would only transfer out what's actually needed.
That one balance for the coastal parks, if it would be toward the end of the year, if we need operation funds, that would be when the $300,000 would be transferred if it's needed. And I'll make make sure that the commissioners know how much would be transferred if the amount is transferred.
So the balance of budget, Judge, and that's your question, in the budget itself,
Right.
the transfer in would include the full amount.
Correct.
In their budget. Now, in actuality, cash-wise, you wouldn't necessarily have to transfer the whole works at the end of the year.
So you move it off the recommended additional items and you put it up under contingency?
But I would leave it in the recommended items to the transfer. Caveat contingent upon shortage of funds or something like that. In other words, all our transfers here, with the Island Park and Inland Park, traditionally we've transferred the whole amount, but there's other ones where they don't need the
No, what I'm saying is that it's $300,000. We programmed in to our needs right now. We would have, if we were to do what your suggestion is, that $300,000 has to go back up there upstairs into transfers or contingencies, so we don't pick up any money and we don't lose any money, and the numbers stay the same.
numbers stay the same. Judge.
You're just, what we're saying is, we're just not going to fund the shortfall in coastal parks.
I mean, we funded it as needed.
If needed.
Judge, it would be, we would leave it in the transfer item for transferring to the coastal parks as a budget item. Because otherwise you wouldn't have a balanced budget over there with the balance.
So
Appropriations will be there, but where the source, I guess the best way to say it, the appropriations will be there, but the source of the funds.
Like you show on your statements on tab 21, where it showed the budget deficit of $247,000. So if the revenue stays the same and the expenses stay the same, we would need the $300,000 to cover operations. That's where Steve is coming in. We would need the additional $300,000 for operations to cover the shortfall in the revenue expense. However, if more revenue comes in from the RV parks and whatever's being built now, that $300,000 won't be needed to cover a shortage.
I guess to clarify.
The revenue will be higher.
Yeah, you could put in a second general fund transfer as a contingency transfer,
Well, on the transfer list, we'll make it as a contingency item, yes.
so that's clear. And that's, Judge, if you look on page 2 of tab 21, and down in the transfers in, we have from general fund, $917,000.
Where are we at?
On tab 21.
21,
Page two.
page 2.
Okay, if you go back and show me where the 300,000, you've got 300,000 you programmed in way back up here in the front of the book. Okay, show me where it is on this tab 21 that you're talking about.
It is not
Not here
there
yet.
yet.
Okay, so
That's what we're discussing.
that's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
We're
So
discussing whether we include that.
So on tab 3, you're showing a $249,000 deficit at the end of the year, so the 300,000 is to cover that 249,000
Correct.
with a little buffer.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that will only be appropriated from the general fund if it's necessary.
Correct.
That's the discussion.
That's the discussion, yes.
And where we would display this on this tab, 21, page 2, the 917,000, you see that's what's, we program in there, the additional 300,000, he would add, they have to add another line item transfer from general fund contingent upon.
Well, in the budget book, we show a complete list of all of our transfers and a description of what the transfers are, and there will show that 300,000 is contingent upon operational needs of the department.
So does that mean that all transfer ins is contingents?
Most are not. Most are for operational purposes. So if we have that 900,000 that is for operations, and the 1.7 million for inland parks is definitely operations. So those are definitely known items as well as for the airport and for the fairgrounds. Those are known transfers we have to do. These ones that were unforeseen is what we can consider contingencies.
Okay. Okay, so you're just budgeting for what you think is inevitably going to happen based on,
If the
What's
revenue
happening
doesn't
there?
increase because the RV parks are not operational as they foresee them to be, they'll need additional funds, yes.
okay, all right. So I have a question to go along with that. If Coastal Parks receives, and we've all heard that they may receive a whole bunch of money through this program from
BP funds.
BP funds, there you go. Is that going to, the BP funds, as I understand it, have to be used for specific things?
It's not likely to.
It's not likely they're going to be able to use that to reduce their operational overhead. So my question is, are the BP funds going to result in them needing additional operating funds to be able to spend that money?
I don't know.
You know.
That's a good question.
So, and are those funds supposed to be received in this next budget year, or do we know yet?
I'm not sure.
I don't think we know. The $7.5 million that was on the initial list to come to Nueces County was a portion of a large number of funds, some of it going to the port, some of it going somewhere else. But none of those funds have actually been allocated, to the best of my knowledge. None of those funds have actually been allocated by the federal government or whoever's controlling that to Texas, to the governor's office, and to Parks and Wildlife and GLO for the distribution as proposed to be distributed. Nobody's seen that money.
Okay, well, I would suspect it'd be a very good question for our grants department or somebody to, because as you know, many of these other grants that we apply for through the federal government, they allow you to appropriate so much of that for administrative cost for administering those things, and we probably ought to ask that question at some point.
And there probably will be some kind of function when the grant's written that there will be some administrative costs with the grant, but once the grant's paid for and done for, then those costs would have to be switched over to whoever the operation would be or dismissed.
Correct.
That's a great point. I have no idea what the answer is there.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about it. Okay. John, do you have some stuff on there?
No.
Please.
No, I really don't have anything on this part, Judge.
Anywhere.
Some of the concerns have been brought up. I did ask Steve this yesterday, and just so we can have it kind of
Okay.
on the record is, it seems like every budget cycle that is done, there's always a caveat to it. There's always some sort of exception or rule that has come up, or some sort of cut or addition that's really significant and gets the public's attention, and we'll wonder, why did you close down XYZ, or why are you not putting enough funding here in this service or that? So what we have here, Steve, is pretty much, lack of a better word, a copy of last year's budget, and there are just these changes that you have presented to us on tab 7, page 2. So other than that, we don't have anything else that we have cut, and as far as anything that we're adding, it's just in this list of 18.
As a mention, so there's not anything in here that we are cutting out, any kind of big items. We're not cutting any positions for certain. We're not cutting any salaries and stuff. We're not cutting programs at all. I'll tell you, in doing the budget, there is some cut in the field work department, because our building is, and basically we were overfunded also. So those kinds of cuts, but nothing that action that you're taking today that by the way, there's some hidden item that's going to pop up. In addition, as I said, trying to be as open as we could, all these items that we have on that tab 7, page 2, and actually page 1 and 2, we put them in there in this format rather than just go in and I put it in there to start with, say, here's your budget. We put them in this format so it's clear to each member of the court and the public that these are changes that we're proposing for the coming year. I'm not aware, I can't, I just told you, I can't guarantee.
No, but there's nothing that we've seen that's a big plus or minus. Of course, we know that throughout the last year, we did cut 2 positions because court reporters, we took out 2 rovers, and there's been some other small changes for reclassifications that are being already factored in. We know some of the departments have changed slightly, but there's nothing large that's in the budget that Steve had already discussed.
And I would agree with that. Those are the actions you took last year. You reorganized the IT department or changed some changes there, and you made changes to the roving court reporters and salary changes. Anything that was done last year is included in this budget, but it's not new with this budget.
Right.
And the South Texas Military Facilities Task Force, is that something we give every year or only when we know or think that BRAC is kind of coming up?
We have, over the last 3 years, we have made a contribution as BRAC starts, as the rumors and everything get started and the military task force starts getting active again. The city and the port each contribute $75,000 each. We were at $25,000 for 2 years. And this year, and all the time we've been going back and forth to Washington and all the rumors and everything else, it's pretty obvious that 18-19 is going to be a very, very active year. Well, the president wants changes, McCain wants changes. So we had $25,000 that we gave to the chamber for windstorm. Well, that's out. Okay. So rather than do anything else, what my recommendation was to take 15,000 of that 25 and give it to the task force because they need the money, and then just let the other 10,000 go back in the fund balance. But the task force goes to Washington probably 4 times a year, and then they do all kind of stuff here, meeting with the military here. They do a good job. But it's expensive. Now, when I travel on behalf of the task force, the county pays my expenses, not out of this money. They pay and I have a budget line item for that. And I probably make 3 trips a year up there.
And my question was this, are we contributing, enough? I mean, I guess there's never going to be enough. There's always going to be a large amount.
We're not and the Port are, but we have never been. And my recommendation to the court is let's ratchet up a little bit this year.
Sure.
Make them spend the money, as Joe says, make them spend the money wisely if they're going to spend it, and let's see where we are. But that would be my recommendation. And they asked for 40. Oh, I'm sorry. And they asked for 40 this year, John, so that's what that is.
And
Apologize.
There have been years when we haven't given anything, but there was nothing going on.
There was nothing going on.
But that's been 4 or 5.
So we're going to be at 35,000?
40.
40,000.
Total 40. Yes. We, John, to help answer part of your question, when we sat down with all the requests from the various elected officials and all, and as you know, as we went through this last week, we really did not look at any of these major requests this year as being something we felt like we could fund. Now, we did not cut out anything. We didn't remove any programs that I'm aware of. It's sort of like everything else you do in budgeting. They asked for X, they got less than X, and somebody say, well, you reduced my budget. No, we just didn't increase your budget by anything, but we kept you where you were. And I can tell you that, as you remember, the district attorney asked for a lot of enhancements. There were other departments that asked for a lot of enhancements. But at the end of the day, when we sat down, we just said, we just can't do that this year. We're going to have to sucker up and do what we can with what we have this year and manage this expense side as closely as we can. And Joe, you got a great point. If they don't need 300,000, they don't get 300,000. That's a great point. But I think we're going to have to leave the overtime in the sheriff's department because it's not going to be enough. I can tell you that right now. But we're at least budgeting. We hadn't budgeted his overtime in the past, and we're trying to put a number in there and hold him to something, and hold him to it. Well, no, really, and that's what you were saying. Let's hold him to a number. And if that's not enough, we'll always fund the sheriff because we have to. You know that, haven't been a JP, but if we get to 6 months or 8 months into this thing, and we'll have to have a come to Jesus meeting and say, what the hell's going on?
The other thing I might add, I had a question yesterday. If you go to page, again, tab 7, page 2, and just to reiterate, which kind of tagging on to what you said, Judge, item number 9, the risk assessment, we're doing that, and that was a program, as we talked about, that the courts had asked to reimburse to probation officers, and this is to be able to increase our flow of getting people out of the jail. And we also, on item 10 and 11, they're tied to the district courts, and one is for visiting court, and the other is a pre-trial, just 2 temporaries. They'd asked for full-time positions, and we said, okay, we're going to give you temps to help track these cases. And then the last one is the number 13, the DA's request for assistance in the cite and release program. And so we're funding, the only new position we have is this position, which is going to be a cite and release program coordinator. And so, again, those I know commissioners had asked me if these were in there, and they are in there. Yeah.
And that's it. It's a whole lot more fun to have more money than you have. But, but we don't have it. And so we're just going to have to, we're asking everybody this year, publicly, privately, and everything else, here's what you have. You don't have to spend it all. Don't spend it. I mean, that's the only thing I can ask everybody in. Now, that does not mean they can't fill their positions. We're not proposing any hiring freeze. We're not proposing any delayed hiring. We're not proposing anything along those lines. We're just simply asking folks to do the best job to manage what we give you, and then we'll go from there. And that's, I can assure you, every day, every week, 3 or 4 of us are looking at everything that comes across the desk. And, I look at all the bills because I have to sign off on 90% of them or all of them. And I'm not bashful. If there's something comes across my desk that I don't think we're doing right, it'll go back and we'll try to get it better. But that's where we are.
And Judge, unless there's other questions there, I would just comment to the court. Tomorrow says agenda item on the tax. It's not approving the tax rate. It's approving your proposal to increase taxes above the effective tax rate. And it has to be done with a record vote, but all you're doing is not saying what the tax rate's going to be. You're saying you're proposing to raise the taxes above the effective tax rate, and that needs to be done informally, because if we're increasing above the effective tax rate, then we're going to have 2 public hearings for the public, and we have additional postings to do that. So that's the purpose of tomorrow's item on there. And I don't know and then I would, if you go back to the table, tab 1, and go to page 5, which is August calendar, I just want to point out some of the key things that we have on here. Of course, the 16th is tomorrow. Tomorrow on the 6th rate. On the 18th, the judge will be sending out letters to all elected officials.
Yeah, I signed those yesterday. There's only one elected official this year who qualifies for a step increase, and it's Commissioner Gonzalez. Everyone else stays exactly the same.
And Commissioner Morris, part of the reason by statute, these letters have to go out, and actually elected official can grieve their salary. If they feel that their salary isn't just, they can come by and there's a formal procedure. We haven't done that since the 90s. But it is a requirement. So, and then jumping down on the 29th, Tuesday the 29th, we're going to have our first public hearing, presentation to the public. Basically, we give a presentation and really don't have any discussion back and forth with them as at most hearings. But, and so that would be one for all the court. And then of course, we have a commissioner's court on the 30th. Then jumping into September, on the 2nd of September, we'll be publishing notice in the Caller Times of the elected officials' salaries. Dale, I don't recall, is that just salaries that are increased or everybody's salary? Everybody's salary. So all elected official salaries will be posted in on the 3rd, we'll be posting the notice of our budget hearing, which is on the 13th. Our second public hearing will be on Thursday, the 7th of September. So basically, we'll have 2 public hearings that you'll need to be at, and then and on the 13th is the date that we will be approving our tax rate and approving the budget.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Steve, if we could go back to inland parks for just a second.
Okay. That's tab 20.
Yes, sir. And let's see. I want to look at, let me find my place here, I apologize. On the page 1, under transfers in from the general fund, and then you have transfers from the stadium fund.
The reason for that transfer from the stadium fund is that Edwards Crew takes care of the grounds.
Okay.
And so the time that they spend taking care of the grounds, we bill back to the stadium.
So the stadium, whatever revenue the stadium is generating, we're going to take $25,000 of that. And
that's been last year there was 32,000 in there, but it's, the bottom line, Commissioner, of it, frankly, it's done for accounting reasons.
Yeah.
But the money, the stadium money is not. It's getting money transferred from the general fund. Inland Parks get money from transferred in.
So ultimately, it all comes from the general fund.
It all comes from general fund for basically saying, but it's better to keep track of that this is expenses, a stadium expense, not a inland park expense.
Okay.
And something I passed over, if you want to, while you're there, Commissioner, on page 2.
Yes, sir.
Under 5260, there's a $300,000 request in there for plumbing major repairs, restrooms.
Right.
That's not in the operating budget, but that's in our proposed CO funding for next year. So we have 300,000 in there for inland parks, for this purpose.
Okay, so you just took it out of there and put it over in the
COs.
CO?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't that money ultimately end up back there? I mean, how are you?
Well, it's a major capital project.
Okay,
And so it'll be done as a major capital project, not as an operating expense.
not as an operating, okay.
Right.
Okay, so tell me about the other changes to the request, the 20,000, the 202,000. Why are those being pulled out?
The 20,000 is a contingency.
Okay.
And so that is pulled out, and then the $202,000, that's huge increase on equipment and purchase and capital stuff, and we just don't have the funding for it. It's basically keeping the budget, budget neutral.
So did Edward give you a specific list of capital outlays that,
Do you have that? Yes, he did, and if we, I guess if we look at, tab, which one? Tab 10, tab 12. And it's on page 1. And the 207,000, you can see the list of things that he's asking for with that 207,000. And
okay, not sure about the playground and fitness equipment.
I mean, most of that stuff goes back to kind of a program, and if well, it's upkeep on a park or fitness equipment. I'm not sure where that's tied to.
Well, I just wanted to be sure we were being as fair to inland parks as we are to coastal parks, because Edward works for 3 commissioners, not 1.
No, exactly.
And as I've said many times in this court, and this is true for Scott as well, but Edward is not just the inland parks director, he's the construction manager for 3 commissioners. And I just want to make sure we're not choking inland parks down to the point where it's going to impact what we do overall. Because all these ADA projects that are coming up, Your Honor, every one of us in the inland commissioners precincts all turn to Edward for help on those projects. And so when we're appropriating ADA money for these projects, we need to appropriate money for the proper supervision that's going to be provided for those projects, and we need to understand who's going to manage them. And if Inland Parks is going to be, the director of Inland Parks is going to be managing, we need to compensate Inland Parks appropriately.
I think it's a good point,
Hey,
Commissioner.
Commissioner, one thing, looking at Edward's budget, the other thing is I'm budgeted him $160,000. That 200, he listed on his budget that he was asking for
207.
2,000 additional on top of his 160, but as far as the request, he only has $207,000 as items, so he has $160,000 to spend on any of these items that are on his list there. So it's not like he doesn't have any of the money to be able to cover it.
Okay, show me where that 160
Okay.
is.
On page 2 of tab 20. He asked for an increase of 202,000, so his actually total request was, it's the bottom line there under capital. His total request is 362,000. But he's getting 160,000 of it. I mean, he's keeping the 160,000 he had last year, so The way he presented it was like he was going to need 160,000 plus the 200,000, but he's only listed on there, the $200,000 with
The
items.
request was 202,502, and the proposed budget is 160, so the
Right.
change to request shouldn't be 202.
No, Commissioner, if you, that 202, that's, the requested change to the budget is 202. His total request was, so his total request was. a total left-
362,
352, yeah.
362,502.
And that's, I think it was just a matter of where you put the budget in that had the impact. He's getting 160 to cover most of what he's got in his itemized numbers or things. And I didn't see any increase request for vehicles either, so I think that's his total.
Okay, the next one I want to talk about is sort of IT. When Lance made his presentation to us, he talked about the fact that Ann Hinojosa has already left the employment of Nueces County, if I understand it correctly. We did not have anybody to take her place, and he had recommended the merging of that department with our records management and to come up with a manager of those two departments, and it was going to result in a net increase to the budget of about $1,000-something. So are we keeping that in there, or what's happened on that?
I took that out. Because it was an $80,000 position and creating a new $80,000 position. And I talked to Lance, and part of that was being funded by eliminating a position in the Hinojosa department, and I did not feel like personally that we needed to eliminate that position because that department does a lot of good things for a lot of people. And I could not in any way justify bringing to the court a new $85,000 position. I don't care how you pay for it. It was going to be like a light going off to this county, and so I talked to Lance, and you were gone, which I understand there were a lot of things going on in your life then. And I said, Lance, I can't do this. We can't have a new position for that in IT after we have done all we've done in IT the last year, and I'm going to have to ask you to go back and take another look at it and figure out how we can manage that department and do what you want to do and not lose a position up there for the people who work there and not do that. So that's what I asked him to do.
We weren't really losing a position there, Your Honor.
Yeah, you are. You've taken one of the positions away to help fund that.
And the position to take away is the person who retired, and all you're doing is moving that over and putting it under another position.
No.
So I don't understand what you're saying.
You eliminated one of the
He
workers.
was deleting two positions and creating one new position, so there's a net.
Yeah.
There was a net one position going away. He was.
So I don't agree, Your Honor, when you say we're going to create a new $85,000 position. That's not what we're doing. That's
what it's gonna cost.
Absolutely not what we're doing.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. I'm sorry.
Well,
When you eliminate two positions and you create one and there's a net increase of $1,000, that's not creating a new $85,000 position.
well, it is, Mike, because you're eliminating a worker. And I told him that I was not in favor of eliminating a worker in that department. And the only way he could make that work is take one of the people who work there and eliminate their position.
The person that was being eliminated, Your Honor, from what I was shown at first, unless something changed, was the person who retired.
No, there were two of them,
There's two of them. There's two
two
positions.
positions.
There's two positions. The position that's retiring, the net total cost was $47,000. The position that was recommended was $80,000, so that's like a $30-some thousand difference.
But when they got through massaging everything around, it was a net increase of $1,000.
Right, because they deleted another worker. They deleted the second, as the judge is saying, they deleted two positions and created one new
So
one.
now you have a department without a manager that you've had for umpteen years.
No,
What are you going to do about that?
we're going to challenge the man who's getting paid to manage the IT department to fill it
For less,
At the same price?
at whatever price he had.
it'd be for less, all right?
Hmm?
It'd be for less than the 80,000, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So he's gonna fill one or two positions?
Well, I've asked him to fill both positions, or in some way create a management position, but also not eliminate a working position in that department. And that was a part of what was going to finance the new position. And I don't think that's right, and I didn't think it was right because that department is a department that has a number of people who work there that the county responds to their needs, and they've done a great job, and we can fill that position that was being eliminated if we try. The working position. I mean, that was,
It could be like a 45, 46.
Well, Your Honor, either I don't understand it or somebody doesn't understand it, because that's not what I was told.
well,
And I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree with the way that's being surmised.
well, so what don't you understand? That
I
he's,
don't understand the fact that you're claiming we're creating a new $85,000 position, and that's not correct.
but we are, Mike, by eliminating two positions. We've now created another manager, or proposed to create another manager and pay them $85,000. About half that salary is being paid by eliminating a worker in that
I don't
department.
remember that at all.
Well, that's what the proposal is.
I don't think that's correct. I'm sorry. I disagree with you. And I have the right to do that. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So before I'm going to vote on this budget, I want that clarified. So I want to meet with the IT director, or I want to meet with you, Your Honor, or whoever I need to meet with, because I'm not going to vote for this budget until somebody clarifies that for me.
What are we certifying?
Clarifying what is being discussed here, Your Honor. I don't agree with what you're saying.
Page 13, tab 13, page 1.
There it is in red on page 1.
You have the sheet,
Yep.
And so what was requested was a new records services manager,
Warehouse?
deleted the records imaging.
It was my understanding that those two positions had already been vacated, and all we were going to do is combine those to create a position.
That's saying you're creating a position now that
Out of two positions where the people are already gone.
But they're not gone. The positions are vacant, but they're not gone.
Hinojosa is gone.
Well, it's a vacant position
Position's still
that
there.
needs to be filled. And the document clerk is a vacant position that needs to be filled.
Okay, well then that's a lot different than saying we were going to eliminate a person. We're not eliminating a person, we're eliminating a position and combining it into another one.
Well, that's what he's been saying. He's been saying positions. We've been talking about positions
Yeah.
all the time, not that people.
Okay, well that's what I'm talking about. So I don't understand what the logic is of saying that you're eliminating two positions to create one and you're creating a new $80,000 position. That's just not correct. You may want to say that for accounting purposes, but in reality, that's not true.
Well, if you eliminate the position, then you're not hiring someone to fill those positions.
That's right, Your Honor, because it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go out and find a records managing supervisor that can do what Ann Hinojosa did for $47,000 a year. That's a problem we've been having in this county forever. We've been trying to fix that for the last 5 years, and now we're going to say that we're going to do that, and you just can't do it.
Okay.
So
Thing
I would like to have some more information on that, and I'll do that after this meeting. The other thing I wanted to ask about is the court reporters. I saw that on tomorrow's agenda for the judges' meeting that they have an item on there to discuss court reporters, or is there going to be a recommended increase in their salary?
Every year, we're required by local government code to submit a request to the district judges for the court reporters and my salary. This fiscal year, there's no increases for any court reporters requested at all.
Okay.
They follow the procedure that was set up by the district judges every 5 years. They get a 5 or 10% raise in this particular year, and next year there won't be no increases.
Thank you.
I think that was an agreement we made with the judges anyway, when we got rid of those positions, and they knew there weren't going to be no raises. So,
You know, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I've been intimately involved in this, as you well know, and nobody had the courtesy to come tell me what the changes were.
Mike, this happened over a period of about 2 weeks, and unfortunately, you were gone a lot of that 2 weeks when we were trying to put this together. I probably should have made sure you were here. I talked to Lance twice and asked him to please come talk to you about this, and he said he would. And I said, Lance, here's my reasoning. I don't want to eliminate a working position in that department because those positions are important to the people who fill them.
But, Your Honor, that's not the point. The point is, we're trying to fix something for the future, and we have an opportunity to do it, and if we miss this opportunity, it won't come around again for another 5 years, at least. Because every year we're going to say, well, we don't have the money, we don't have the money, we don't have the money.
Well, I think we've been, as a court, extremely cooperative and generous in enhancing the IT department over the last 2 years.
This is really not about the IT department. This is about records management.
Which is a part of IT department.
It's a part of IT by default, but we now have had a key person who has managed the scanning department for this county for a number of years, who has left the employment of this company, of this county, and we have no idea who's going to replace her and continue to provide the quality supervision that we received from that individual. And we're challenging, or we're going to challenge our IT director to try to go out and find somebody to replace that person for $47,000 a year. That means you're going to try to go out and hire somebody who's got 10 plus years of experience in records management, not IT, records management, and offer them a job making $47,000 a year.
Well, I was more concerned about the other position than that one, because we're starting somebody at 28,000. I always say, 30,000 should be what we start somebody. But, I would say 46.5 for the manager and 30,000 for the other employee, and that, again, we got to start at the bottom sometime too. Start bringing these employees at a good pay, or else we're going to lose them. We're going to lose them too. So if you do that, that's almost 76.5 at 46.5 and 30. We never worry about the guy in the bottom. And he's going to do most of the work.
What Ann Hinojos' department does for this county is not just IT related and record management. The district clerk depends on that department. The county clerk depends on that. Y'all don't use them anymore? Okay, well, they did. And so they don't just function for one department. It is a very critical part of what this county does.
Well, I think everybody functions for everybody.
Okay.
My deal is still bringing that guy to 30,000 to 28,000.
Well, the 28 is what everybody else in that department makes. That's a set salary. Yeah, they all make that. That's where that came from. It's to fill a position that is comparable to what everybody else in that department's making, except the manager. Okay. Any other questions? Buddy? You want to talk about the capital, the
About-
COs, the program there?
Right, and so part of our proposal, which is on tab 7 again, on page 3, is the projects that we talked about for COs. And the big one is the election department to replace our voting machines. And so, the judges asked Kara to come up and talk with us about the voting machines.
Thank you for coming in.
Okay, well, thank you. And I have some information for y'all. I can pass it out. Yeah, I do. Take it, the fancy ones. Yeah, and then I'll give, let's go through and I'll give this to you. Okay, good morning. Give y'all a chance to look at your packet.
Go.
Okay, so we have, our voting equipment was purchased in 2006. And the last few elections, it breaks down. We've had several complaints, y'all know, y'all have received the complaints, and it's just outdated. I know that when it was purchased, they said that it would last 10 to 15 years. All around the state, counties are purchasing new equipment, and I think it's time that we started talking about this a few months ago, to really start looking at new equipment. So, I have a quote for you and information about the new system. After every election, we spend $6,000 to $10,000 repairing various pieces of equipment, as it is. We want to implement it. If we get new equipment, we want to make sure we implement it during the constitutional. It's a smaller election. We don't want to do it during a primary or a general. And I think that if we wait, I'm concerned that it's going to be chaotic. We have several machines that are going to break down. That's not good. So, do you have questions?
That's it?
I mean, here's the quote. I don't know.
So what's the-
We've talked at length I've talked with all of y'all at length about this.
Okay.
So the quote, it would be new not new poll books, new JBCs, they're touch screens for an entire new voting system. It's HART. It's the same company, it's the same vendor. We can only use HART. We can only, if we stick with vote centers, that's the difference. There are other vendors that have paper, but if you go back to paper, because I know it's been asked, if we go back to paper, we cannot use vote centers. And that's the law.
So the total amount is the $3,746,000?
Yes.
For how many?
For how many pieces? For 500 of regular, they're kind of like the E-slates right now. But, so we'll get 500 pieces of those, and then we'll get 140, which are for ADA.
140 for ADA?
Yes, so 640.
Now, Steve, explain the funding again, please, if you would, to the court.
Yes, what we are proposed, right now in the Special Revenue Fund, the Elections Department has about $350,000 that's in the sinking fund for machines.
700,000.
700, a combination of that, operating, and so total $700,000 in special revenue funds that can be used to go to offset the cost. So we're proposing using that money and then having a CO issue of $3.1 million to come up with basically $3.8 million to cover the cost that she has proposed here.
Okay. And you assured me, and they assured you, I think, Kara, that if we order these, we can get them in,
Correct.
as Commissioner March said, and get them in time for the constitutional election and use them and try to make sure the bugs are out.
Correct.
Okay.
Do that. They will also assist us in voter education and going around. I spoke to some of the commissioners about this. It's going to be a good idea to go to the different senior centers and have open houses so
Right.
folks can get used to it, get acquainted with the new system. So we will do a big push on that as well.
And the
Voter
constitutional election is November the,
education. 7th.
whatever, 2nd to 8th, whatever it is, 7th.
In order to keep this moving along, tomorrow on the agenda, there's a resolution that our bond council's drawn up for us that basically says that gives us authority to reimburse ourselves with the CO funds. In other words, we can go ahead and start ordering the equipment, get the process moved. If we have to spend any money, we spend it out of the county funds we have here, and then reimburse ourselves with the COs rather than wait until the COs are already issued, because we never get there. And it is illegal in a way that's been used before.
Okay.
And I will get the contracts over for Laura to go over them.
Okay.
So what do you foresee? We order now, say we order the end of this month. Those should be here by September?
Yes.
Good.
And then how long is the education that you said?
As long as needed. As soon as when we get it in, we'll start doing the push, and then we'll take as long as needed. We'll go. I'll actually do the same thing I did last year for the generals. I went around to about 30 different senior centers and assisted living facilities.
Be good.
And so we'll also partner with the folks from the ADA community as well.
And how does this work with the equipment? I mean, with it being a new purchase, like you said, we've had the current equipment since 2006. Will there be techs on site, at least for this initial
Yes.
election?
Yes, and Hart will have people on site. Plus, we'll be trained in it. My staff will be trained. They will also handle the training for the judges as well, and for all so they're going to
This
handle all of
initial
that
push.
for this first one. And we have techs every election.
Yeah.
And they get
No,
trained.
yeah, I know we have the techs, but I
Yeah,
mean,
but we will
especially
have
them
people
on
from Hart,
site,
absolutely,
right?
yes. We will have a project manager who will be with us every step of the way.
And just to help me better understand the current equipment that we have compared to what you're proposing, what seems to be the problem? I mean, you hear of delays at certain sites, that there's been polling sites that don't open in time because they're having problems with the equipment or whatever. Is that just because it's kind of getting outdated, or what has been the problem with that?
It's getting outdated, and some of that is maybe with the judges
Both.
or not. Yeah, it's a little bit of both. But there's also times when, for instance, we delivered equipment to a school and the janitor has moved it and we can't get to it because it's locked up, and that happens a lot, actually. So, they're waiting for whoever is in charge of that school to come and open up to get the equipment. There's various reasons. It's a lot user-friendly, actually. Everyone I've spoken to, it's just, when we had a presentation on the equipment a few months ago, setup for the judges is just easy. And that's what we want. We want user-friendly for the judges and for the voters as well.
And so you said it's going to be touchscreen?
Yes,
Because, sometimes I still want to not use the dial on the current ones.
because we're all used to touchscreen.
Touchscreen,
This
yeah.
is touchscreen.
And the lifespan for this new equipment, do you know what that is, or is that in the paperwork that you gave us?
It's not in there, but it's the same. It's about 15 years.
In 15 years? Yeah, I'm all for it. My question would be, I know you've done your homework, and I know you said that if we got away from voting centers, that we can use something that utilizes more or paperwork.
Correct.
Is that even an option for us, or is that something that we have committed already, Judge, for the long term?
I hope it's not, because the voting center, thanks, thank you. Thank you. The voting center election was overwhelmingly accepted by this community. I mean, everybody thought, but it's a heck of a good
Right.
deal.
Great feedback.
It really was. I don't think we got a negative feedback from that, but a lot of positive feedback.
You're right.
And we eliminated 40 problem sites or whatever it was, and the voting went up,
It did.
which is what you want.
One, we're also having to purchase less equipment because of the voting centers.
Yeah.
So if we were to go back, so you would have to purchase more even if you went to paper. Plus, y'all would have to, well, and keep in mind that there are several precincts that do not have a building at all. So y'all would, if we go back to paper and we eliminate vote centers, we're back to, let's provide a place to vote.
But the
I don't
voting,
think that we can do that
I
right
would
now.
hope the county would never go backwards.
But how
I do not want, no one
Yeah,
wants to.
yeah.
Could we commit to a certain year down the line and say, let's reevaluate, or is it just indefinite that we've committed to voting
It's,
centers?
yeah, it's up to y'all.
The court could, I guess, go back to the Secretary of State and say, we want to go back the other way, but,
You just decide.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, I was just
yeah,
wondering. I
yeah,
wanted to make
but
sure.
I think it'd be like once a week garbage, John.
Right. Well, and
Okay.
also keep in mind that the curbside capability is the only certified, and that's a big deal for us. We have a lot of curbside voters, and it's important. It's
Yeah.
very important. And with this, it's just a little e-slate that they take out there with the voting, with the other system that, again, is not certified, but they're pushing for it to be certified. What happens is you can print off your ballot after you vote. So you've marked your ballot, you print it off, and then you have to take it to another station and feed it in to an electronic tabulator, if you will. So, or reader. Now, we take that out to the curbside. First of all, their equipment, it's huge. It's big. It's not practical to take out there. And they had offered to build a stand or a cart. So again, it's not curbside ready at all. But on top of that, more importantly, that voter does not get to cast their ballot because they cannot go in and feed that paper ballot to the counter. So they mark their ballot, but then the judge has to take that ballot, a live ballot of that voter's, and go and feed it in.
Oh, boy.
So we're taking away the rights of that voter to actually cast their ballot.
You're doing it for him.
And-
Right? Absolutely.
So based on all of this that you're saying, all of this, the specifics that we need, so there's not really a need, or there's not anyone else that qualifies to be able to put a bid in for this then?
Correct. It's only hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I had a long talk with Kara about this yesterday, so I'm not saying anything she doesn't know that I'm going to say. I don't think this is the best system that we looked at. I think it's the second best system we looked at. Hart has no competitor, and they have worked very hard to not have competitors. The other company that we looked at that had a system that provided you a hard copy backup of each vote was not approved by the legislature when they wiped out all the bills because they were more interested in screwing over cities and counties. Wiped out the legislation that would have allowed the paper systems to be utilized at vote centers. The company that has that equipment had applied to the Secretary of State for a waiver to get approved, and Hart filed a lawsuit to stop that from happening. So to me, they're totally predatory on keeping away competition. So I just want to say I don't think this is the best system we looked at, but as Kara said, it's the only one currently approved unless the Secretary of State changes something here in the next few weeks.
Well, just to answer that, but thank you for your comments, Commissioner Pesley. And I
Those are not derogatory about Kara and her department whatsoever. It's just,
Right.
we looked at them, and I personally didn't like their system better than I did the other one, and I'm just making those comments.
And that's
And
fair.
I've kept up with what's gone on in the legislature.
So, one thing I will say, with the other vendor, they did try to they don't want to go through the certification process. It's a very long process to be certified to be able to use this equipment. And I find that is a problem. So they did go to the legislature to try to get the legislature to give them a waiver not to have to go through the certification process that Hart had to go through. Now, I'm not a cheerleader for Hart, but that's the best we've got. But anytime a vendor tries to circumvent the process to make it easier on themselves and not go through the same formalities and go through the same accreditation, I have a problem with that. So that aside, Hart's, this is what we have. This is where we're at.
And I guess that, if they're not willing or haven't gone through the certification, then I guess obviously it's a moot point since Hart's the only one available. But do we know price? I know what would the other company be? Are they pretty cheap? But we're not certified. They're not certified.
They're not certified. Again, if you want to, we can. If y'all want to look at that, then we have to take away vote centers. And I strongly recommend that we do not do that.
Well, I hope that message is really conveyed and reminded when we work on this, because I think the public deserves to be aware of that there is a cheaper route, but that it's not certified, and so we can't use it unless, like you said, we get rid of the voting centers, which I think have done some good work in reaching out to the community, especially for people who are trying to get to their home precinct and stop by something closer to work or somewhere in between home and work. So I do like that convenience, but it's unfortunate that they can't or haven't been able to get certified, but it's costing them business and costing us money, unfortunately. But if that's all we have, then that's fine. Thank you.
Well, my hope in all of this is that we obviously in our last election, and probably most likely in several elections before that, had people who were working the polls who knew how to game the system. And I hope that this will eliminate the potential for people to break the law and skew our vote totals by knowing how to operate the system.
The JBC, when they would put in the precinct and they would put in the wrong precinct, it would come to the JBC operator.
Right.
And so what he's referring to is that there was a place that was investigated that I think on purpose was putting in a certain precinct. But we received 0 complaints. The voters didn't even realize it because they were so used to down the ballot anyways. It was just 1 or 2 races. It didn't affect any races, any outcome. But what happens is when a voter goes in and they check in and they get, they sign the form, and then they get a little label that's printed off, and it has to be handed to the JBC operator. It's a big, machine. So then the JBC operator has to manually put in the precinct, and then you get an access code. If the JBC operator does not put in the right precinct, whatever code that's tied to when the voter goes to the e-slate and presses that 4-digit code, that is the precinct. That's the ballot style they're going to get. So it's so important that the JBC operator puts in the correct precinct number. Now with this new system, it's all automatic. So when we check the voter in, on that label is actually, it's tied directly there for the check-in. So their precinct, it's going to be, there's a reader now, and that's how they get their access code. It's not a manual, it's not left up to that JBC operator. Because I don't think folks realize how important that job is, because you're putting in the precinct number, and that's your ballot style.
Well, I think there was
So they don't have to do that.
I think there was people that
I think there was a couple, obviously.
They knew exactly how important it was.
Yeah, but we also had some that they just,
And Kara, it may not have affected the outcome of any particular election, but the fact is we had somebody who was
absolutely.
cheating.
I agree, and you know how I am.
So,
take that very seriously, and I turned it
breaking the law.
over to the authorities. Absolutely.
It was
I don't mess
voter
around when
fraud.
it comes to that.
Absolutely voter fraud.
Kara, I'm sorry.
That's good.
Trying to look through all the documents you gave us, and I appreciate that. And I don't know if we'll have more time later on, but since you're here, it says that 17 Texas counties have purchased Verity since December 2016. including 5 counties who moved from the competitor to Hart's Verity voting system. So, do you know, are you familiar with which counties these are and what they?
I actually sent y'all the list of the counties, and I don't have it with me. I know
Okay.
Brazoria County just bought it, Potter County just changed over, Lubbock County is one, I believe Collin County, there's several counties, big counties.
And so they were maybe using another system, maybe paper or
Paper.
whatever.
You're right.
They could because they're not using voting centers? Is
We
that
have,
what it-
well, Chambers County, they don't have vote centers. They're going to move towards that, but they switched over. For me, that's too hard as well.
I'm just trying to get a sense of what other counties out there are using. I mean, we can buck the trend, but if there's something else that's out there, another option that we weren't considering, I just want to make sure that we are,
Right.
especially with the price, if there is a significant difference, like Commissioner Pusley said, I want to make sure that, you have looked at all available options, and this is the lowest, best that we can.
This is the only. This is the only one that is certified federally and through the state. And we just got back from our election law seminar, and that's it. This is it.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming this morning.
Absolutely. Now I will get you that list if you want.
Can
I'll email it
we
to you.
request that they, as part of this deal, that they take our old equipment?
Yes, they are. That's part of it.
They're going to
We
take
will take
all
it.
of,
Mhm.
so we don't store it in this old building across the street for 9
Right.
years?
No, they're going to take that. We'll also have an open house, if you will, on Thursday or Friday. They're going to come down and we can set it up. And y'all can come down and look at it. We're going to invite the presiding judges and the election workers to come take a
It
look.
is much better than what we have now. I will
Absolutely.
admit that. There's no doubt
Oh,
about that.
thank you.
It is much better than what we have now.
I don't take it personally. This is what we have.
And will this speed up our election results, or that's still based on election judges getting the numbers in?
That is still based on the election judges.
So no matter how good the equipment have, we still have that human
Yes, we do.
part to it that can delay.
I remember one year we were sitting here at the courthouse waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. We couldn't find these 2 election judges, and they actually went out and started searching for them and couldn't find them, and it was like 10 o'clock, and they finally showed up, and they said, well, where were you? I said, well, we stopped and got some dinner. So,
And one of those as well, they went to Whataburger.
yeah, exactly.
So we said, do not go to Whataburger. We'll send the deputies after you.
Thank you, Carol.
Ew. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Steve, are we ready to move on?
I think we've covered everything.
Okay.
That's the question, so I think we're ready for tomorrow. And we'll continue to work, put everything into shape for
Okay.
our first budget, our tax hearing. That we'll
Okay.
have.
And we know what the effective rate is, what the current rate is, and what the proposed rate is. Okay,
Yeah, I got one question
sure.
on the tax. Can we bring this up?
I'm sorry.
On the tax, can we do the effective tax? Can we discuss that or not?
Say again?
Can we discuss the effective tax rate right now?
Sure you can. Sure. What page you on?
On page number 2.
Under tab.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think probably tab 5 has the, well, what was you going to request?
Yeah.
Tab 5 has the calculations, but if you have a question on funds available on 8, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I just want to, and my question again, the effective tax rate, it means we're not raising taxes. We're not,
That's,
we're staying where we're at,
yes.
and the value can change, but of course your tax is going to change anyway, right?
Well, what happens, the values go up, so the tax rate has to go down to make sure that you don't levy any more than was the previous year except for new properties. And so on that page 1 of tab 8, we pick up $750,000 additional funds, but it's primary new growth. Is that correct, Bill?
That's correct.
And so what was proposed and what we've proposed this budget on is using the current tax rate, which would be page 3. The current tax rate is an increase in taxes, so what would be tomorrow's item, you would be voting to propose a increase above the effective tax rate.
And when you say increase, I mean, we're gonna leave the,
Your tax rate is not going to change,
right,
but you're increasing the tax,
your property.
you're increasing the
if it goes
levy.
up, no matter what property it is, if it goes up, then yours goes up. But as far as here, the current tax rate, we're not saying we're gonna raise a penny or a penny and a
The
half.
current tax rate, we're planning on keeping exactly what we had the current year, and that will get us $2.6 million or $2.7 million of additional funding. And that be using, like you say, the same tax rate we have this year.
And that's versus the 750,000, right?
Correct.
No, that is,
Well, the first one will be 750,000, this will be 2.6 million.
yes.
That's correct.
And now the last one that we have, I guess, an option, is to raise the tax, say we do a penny. I'm just asking here to raise a penny and then give us more, like $5 million?
That's correct,
Total,
yes.
yeah, 2.7 more
Yeah.
than yeah, total.
But that $5 million, is that goes into our reserve fund? Maybe?
Well, if we were to allocate the money in the same manner that has been discussed, we would be spending approximately $4 million, just like we are now. So we would actually pick up roughly $2.5 million of additional funds that could, and the only way I'd vote for it is that it would have to go to the fund balance, that we couldn't spend it for anything now, other than emergency or something else. But that would mean taking the current tax rate and adding a penny to it, so we would be raising the taxes roughly 2 cents over where we are right now. It's 900 basis points, plus whatever a penny would get us, Joe. And my reasoning for not proposing that was, one, that's a much bigger tax increase, but the temptation is pretty great, because we have told everybody no on any kind of increase because we don't have the money. And I have a tendency to believe that if there were additional funds, that everybody who we told no would come back and say, look, you told us no because there's no money, but now you have money and you're still telling us no. And so my answer was, if we don't have the money, we don't have the money, so it's easy to tell everybody no.
And I don't believe, Dale, that Dale's figure to get to $5.8 million is the 8% rollback rate. Now, the rollback rate is dropping off to 6%.
Oh, that's right, they're going to pass 6.
And so
we can't get there.
you can't get to the total amount. You can't raise it in a whole nother penny.
Right now, I did a small calculation based on the effective rate to our current rate is around 3.9%, so above the effective. So you can't go much above what we're at now to get to 6. Maybe another half a cent or more would maybe get you to 6%.
I hadn't thought about that, Joe. The legislature is going to, looks like they're going to pass a 6% cap rather than 8%, and do away with the rollback election, make it automatic that we'd have to have a rollback election and pay for it. So we can't get to that 5-point-something number, period, under the proposed legislation. And I'm glad you all reminded me. I'd forgotten that, because that hadn't passed yet.
No.
It might end up less than 6.
We saw that we did a little calculations to verify this. Right now, if we did the 6% rollback rate above the effective rate, we'd get about 4.5 million additional funds.
That's, 1.3 less or 1 point,
Yeah.
If we do what? I'm sorry?
We get about 4.5 million above what we're at now. If we go, the rollback would be at 6%.
But as the judge says, if it ratchets it back down to 4, then we're at where we're at.
We're right where we are.
And right now, we're about 3.9, yes.
But it's not gonna be 4. It's gonna be 6. 4 means the legislation will fail. But the House doesn't adopt it.
Well,
So one more last question is,
Sure.
do we do the current tax rate with a 2.6, and you're saying our expense is going to be 4 million, so where's the other 2 million coming from?
No, he's saying that if you went to, I think Dale was saying if you went to the 6% rollback rate, then you'd be up to the 4 million. Is that?
Well, no, I think the commissioner's question was, we're proposing the current rate, which would bring in around 2.6 million, and with the additional expenses we're adding to the balances on our budget was 4 million, so I think that's what the commissioner's
Right,
saying.
right.
Additional 2 million in the funds would come from where?
Oh, yes.
We're just keeping it tight, it'll have to come from the fund balance.
balance.
So fund balance could come down some more?
Yes.
Lower.
Unless we hold it tight, yeah.
So what's your fund balance now?
Not enough.
Estimated at 18 million.
Are we still contributing funds to I-69?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
There was one amendment that was approved, and I sent that to you yesterday, Steve.
Well, and what we're contributing, I'm not sure, we're not contributing funds to the highway structure, we're just to the I-69 Association of like, the Alliance, so we're $7,500.
Okay.
It's not when we were buying the right-of-way,
We're not buying right away
we're not buying the
No,
right-of-way. Now,
That's
the
done.
new statutes are going to say is that won't figure into the rollback
The
rate.
rollback calculation.
Right.
So my question is, our funding of the Harbor Bridge, is that going to be the same thing? Because we're doing that in increments, aren't we? Over the course of the next several years? That's a state highway project.
That's something we'll have to look at.
Well, the Arbor Bridge was done through the SIB, State Infrastructure Bond issue, so it was a debt to us now that we're going to be paying for starting in 2019.
But that debt ultimately impacts our total tax rate.
Correct.
So if that calculation gets backed out of the roll, to me, that should be backed out of there as well if this legislation passes.
You know, I don't know
Something
the
we'll-
answer to that.
We'd
I
have
don't
to
either.
study that.
That's a great question. I have no idea. There's still so messed up up there. I couldn't tell you whether it's Tuesday or Thursday, but,
Exactly. No, I agree with that. No doubt.
but that's, we'll ask Noe. We got to get that. That's good. No, we'll ask Noe. I don't know. And they don't know either. So they're not a whole lot smarter than we are right now. Okay?
Could I go back and ask one quick question, Steve?
Please.
On tab 7, page 1, I want to talk about this. We created a new position for the DA under this site and release program, is that correct?
That's correct. That's in
At
page 2.
$41,500, is that the total salary being created for that?
Yes, this is a coordinator. It's not an attorney position, Commissioner.
Okay,
It's not an attorney position. It's just a,
41.5, that's salary and benefits?
yes.
Okay. All right. Now, the DA was on television the other night saying that he had saved $300,000 on his budget due to the way he was processing cases. So do we still need to fund this $41,000?
Yeah, it might double.
You know, I know that, I'm not sure what he was talking towards. I do know that in this pretrial diversion, he's making, he's,
Main topic was talking about the pretrial diversion funds, and it almost sounded like it was new funding source, but this is a funding source that the previous DA had, and they were averaging about $320,000 per year, and that covered the salaries. Now, we've seen the income come up slightly, so we're probably maybe $50,000 to $80,000 more than last year, but not $300,000 more.
Okay, are we funding any of the pretrial diversion now?
No.
I thought we quit that.
we quit that. In fact, we made him, he lost
he's-
positions because of it too, so,
He's funding 3 positions from that fund, yes.
From his
Pretrial diversion.
revolved diversion.
Yes. a chief prosecutor and two regular prosecutors.
Okay.
And we were working with the DA before because the funding sources were, because of different cost increases, the amount of salary was right at the threshold of money he was bringing in. The new DA is now bringing slightly a little bit more, but we were still almost covering the cost.
Where does he get the funds for the pretrial diversion?
Those are when the individuals come in, he assigns a fee or a fine to the individual so they don't have to go through court.
Okay.
And that is where, I think
That's
it's
how they pay
$500
for
for one, $250 for others that he's working with. I think he's got a little bit more, he's hitting more individuals than what the previous DA was doing. That's why there's additional funds.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Nothing else? Appreciate everybody's time today. Good questions. Good work, folks. A lot of work. So tomorrow, we'll start the process of moving toward approval. Our hope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Good deal. 9:15.